Welcome to Towel Capes. I'm Cody Nestor. He's Todd Hill.
What's up, everybody?
And joining us again today is Lexi Valentine.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Welcome back, Lexi.
Welcome back, Lexi. Lexi joined us last Spooky Dookie season. It is once again Spooky Dookie season.
Yeah.
She was in some of our earliest episodes that you can still see on our YouTube channel, some that you can't anymore, Todd.
They're out there in the ether
somewhere maybe someone has them downloaded, like an iPod or something like that, perhaps a Zune. But some of those are not there. But we're happy to have Lexi back with us. She loves Spooky Dookie season.
Best time of the year.
Yeah, best time of the year. And today we're talking about 2009's House of the Devil. So Todd, kick us off. What did you think the story was?
So we got a cautionary tale of why you never ride out into the middle of nowhere in the dead of the fucking night to babysit for people you don't even know.
Yes. Lexi, without giving away too much, what did you think of House of the Devil?
I think it was pretty awful.
That doesn't give away much. At all, does it?
No, I don't give away anything.
What made it awful? Again, we'll go through the story a little bit. What made it awful to you?
Really just how slow it was. It didn't really have any jump scares, really. But
yeah, it is definitely a slow burn, which we'll kind of talk about the tone of it here in a little bit. Todd, what about you? Lexi says it's awful. What did you think coming in House of the Devil?
I agree. It's a bit of a slow burn. If you can handle a bit of a slow burn, you'll be okay. I think once we get to the actual babysitting house, it kind of starts picking up for me. Just the vibes from that place, just the fact that you're a strange young teenager in a strange old house, and when she starts exploring it, and what might jump out at her, what might not. That's kind of some of my favorite parts of it, actually.
Right. A question here too. Before I put this on the list of possible movies, have either of you ever heard of this movie?
I had not.
No, I found it on a random list, one of those best Halloween scary films of the 2000s, the 2010s, 20s, and something like that. So it was something I wanted to look at because I knew it had this kind of retro vibe, which we'll talk about next. Before we get into the story, let's talk about the aesthetics. Film is obviously set in the 1980s. Very firmly planted in there, even though it's 2009. Todd is the only one of us alive during the 1980s.
Hello.
How good of a job does this film do taking you back to the 80s?
Well, thankfully, to its credit, it doesn't go overboard with those corny and cliche 80s references. I mean, Samantha's got her Walkman or her headphones.
Yeah, some songs but it's not like hitting you over the head.
Yeah, a couple of songs. People's using old landline telephones. She gets calls
Rotary
from a payphone.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of it has that vibe, but in a way, it's just not beating you over the head with it. It could have very easily been like 70s, early 80s. I didn't go too far. It didn't overdo it.
Lexi, you're a horror fan. This is your genre. So, you've watched a lot of horror films that were actually made in the 80s. What do you think House of the Devil manages to kind of capture that vibe?
For me, I think they've done a terrible job.
Damn.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of movies I've seen that were made in the 80s, they had jump scares all throughout the movie and kept you on the edge of your seat. The House of the Devil was, like we said, more of a slow burning movie with a whole lot of nothing happening until the very end, except for that cigarette scene,
right?
Which we'll talk about. But
yeah, I mean, I think aesthetic-wise, I think it's aesthetic and tone, I guess, a little bit different. But I would say aesthetically, I think it does enough. I could see if you just set someone down and didn't tell them this was made today, that they could buy that this was shot in the 80s.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't kind of evoke what Lexi's saying, as far as being your typical 80s kind of slasher,
right?
Which is what you kind of think of in the 80s is slashers, Michael, Jason, those kind of things. But I think aesthetically it does enough to kind of capture that 80s vibe. Let's kind of get into it, though, story-wise here, because there's not... It's about an hour and a half long. There's some story, then there's a lot of meandering, and then things really pick up.
Right.
So our main character, Samantha, Sam, if you will, she's your typical kind of broke college student. After meeting with E.T.'s mom, Dee Wallace, Todd, did you notice that?
I noticed Dee Wallace.
She's about to move into her own place. Worried how she's going to afford to live on her own, she decides to inquire about a babysitting job posted around campus to make some extra money. And after initially being stood up by the person hiring her, Sam returns the man's call and agrees to take the job. Driven by her friend Megan, Sam makes her way to the house in the country, to this family's home. Todd, do you want to kind of take it from there and give us our setup here after Sam and Megan have arrived to this family's home.
So basically, Megan has rode her out there. She's dropping her off. She's wanting to stay with her, but Samantha wants her to kind of just, go on back to your house, come back, pick me up later. And kind of a running theme through this is there's like a lunar eclipse is getting ready to happen. And once she gets out there and meets the guy that's hired her, come to find out it's not a true babysitting job. It's actually going to be like an old woman sitting. Yeah. I think it said it's the wife's mother. I think was that what they said?
I think so. Yeah.
So she's a little bit, put off by that. She said, I'm not trained to take care of, like some she falls, breaks a hip, something,
Yeah.
I'm not, nurse. She didn't come out and say it, but she's like, I'm not nurse trained. I don't know how to
Right.
do this kind of stuff. He's like, well, here's a little extra money, So he's like, well, I can't turn this down. I got to afford that place I'm trying to buy. So she convinces Megan to kind of, go on, leave her there. She'll be fine. And another kind of creepy thing, too, is the whole thing is the guy and his wife want to go out and see the eclipse.
Right.
She's got to kind of house sit and old mother sit while they're gone for a few hours. And the guy, creepily enough, keeps mentioning at least 3 times, hey, there's no room on the fridge if you want to order your pizza.
Right.
He starts to say it again. Oh, did I already mention that? Then he starts to mention it a 3rd time.
Yeah, as he's out the door.
Yeah, so something's
There's no
up.
pizza on the door.
Yeah, he
Order, bitch.
he really wants her to order a pizza from this place.
And the old man that you're referring to, Mr. Ullman, played by Tom Noonan.
Yes.
So Tom Noonan, obviously RoboCop 2. If you've seen the Michael Mann film Manhunter, he's one of that guys. He was the fictional movie bad guy in The Last Action Hero. I forget what that bad guy's name was called.
Oh, yeah, with the axe.
Yeah, Tom Noonan, film buffs will know exactly who Tom Noonan is. Sets up and plays a good job here as Mr. Ullman. Megan, played by Greta Gerwig, she would kind of launch her career a little bit after this kind of film comes out. But yeah, for like Lexi kind of mentioned, this is slow burn city for a lot of it. It's a lot of, once we kind of we introduce our characters, Megan, Sam, set them up a little bit. They have a little scene in the pizza shop, which is kind of referential later because Sam is kind of, they're eating the pizza and Sam and Megan are sitting there and Megan's like, this pizza tastes awful. And it's the same type of pizza that'll be ordered later. So that's just something to kind of file away. But yeah, it's just a lot of Sam wandering around the house. Now, I'm all right with a slow burn as long as you pay it off, and that's kind of what we'll talk about is if it pays off for you guys. But our first major what the fuck moment happens I look back at 37-minute mark of the film with a certain cigarette scene. Before that scene, what did you both think of the setup and like the slow burn nature? Up until that point, like I said, it's a lot of meandering, but like, were you invested in it? Did it do anything for you? Were you like, was there any tension? Like, what did you think?
I mean, the slow burning type films is not my type of horror movie.
Right.
Okay.
I prefer horror movies that have me locked in from the beginning. Like my favorite horror movie or franchise, Scream.
Yeah, it's like the scares come
It
quick
starts
and
out
fast.
with a kill scene,
Right.
always.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was just boring to me.
Tom, what about you? Slow burn. How are you with slow burn films here?
I mean, if we're being honest here, we all knew that something was going to be fucked up about the babysitting trip from the get-go.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of what's going to happen and how we're going to get there. So I don't mind you kind of, meandering around that a little bit, maybe setting up some things. And like I said, what some of the better stuff for me in it, other than the cigarette scene we're getting ready to talk about, was her actually just meandering through that old house, flipping on lights. You don't know what she's going to run into, what might be in there, what might not have been in there.
Right.
You kind of give off just like a creepy vibe.
Yeah.
If you're okay with just a creepy vibe type movie with not a lot going on in between, you'll get a lot more out of it, I think.
Also, Sam, very nosy.
That's what I would say.
Very nosy for a babysitter. Yeah, she
Going
really
through
goes
everything
in that house. She really goes through. But at 37 minutes, Megan has left Sam at the house. She's driven off. She's kind of upset with Sam because she's like, "Hey, the vibe ain't right here. Something's wrong. This dude's creepy. This whole situation's creepy. Where's the old lady? Where's the wife he keeps mentioning?" So she's kind of upset. She stops on the road to have a smoke in a cemetery.
Of all places.
Of all places, yeah. Late at night, having a smoke in the cemetery in the graveyard. And what happens from there, Lexi?
So what happens from there is she's sitting there about to have a smoke. This guy randomly comes out of nowhere and scares her. He apologizes for startling her and then explains that he just thought that she could use a light for her cigarette. So she lights her cigarette. He tries to have small talk with her, and she seemed annoyed and was like, "Where'd you come from?"
Right.
So he just like really creepily stares at her and is like, "Are you not the babysitter?" And she said, "No, I'm not the babysitter, my friend." And then boom, shoots her in the face.
Just blows
Blows
her
her
face
face
off. And I was like, yeah, I was genuinely like kind of taken aback. I didn't really see. I figured something was about to happen to her, but I didn't think she was just going to get her head blown off right there.
And I gotta admit, when he kind of shoves that lighter, I was like, I kind of got
That's
me a
your
little
first
bit.
real jump scare
Yeah.
in the movie is when he kind of juts into that window.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of your big first shocking moment. 37 minutes. You go 37 minutes, you get a big shocking moment, and then we're back to slow burn. Build
Again.
with Sam. All back with Sam. All is kind of seemingly well. She's watching TV. They're talking about the eclipse. She's dancing around the house. She's knocking over vases. More
Priceless heirlooms.
Yeah, exactly. More. She's going through their shit. More slow burn build up type stuff. A few things do happen here though. As we mentioned, Sam's pretty nosy. She goes snooping around. She eventually finds a photo of a nice looking family taken outside of the house in front of what looks like the exact same car she saw Mr. and Mrs. Ullman leave in a little bit earlier, and that Sam kind of made mention of, as they're driving up. She's like, "Hey, Volvo, the safest car on the road," or whatever she says.
Right.
So Sam kind of gets a little freaked out about that. While snooping, she also finds a bathtub full of human hair.
Hood.
Which we'll talk about if everybody put that together, because I saw people have some questions about that online. But yeah, she finds a bathtub full of human hair, which is gross. That's your first, like, what's kind of going on here? You have a weird picture of another family in front of that same car in front of the same house. What the fuck is up with that? There's a creepy van in the backyard as well that she notices out there. Big ass like panel van, I guess you would say.
Right.
That's out there. And the other big moment that you have here is while Sam is cleaning up the vase, I believe, we get a glimpse of behind a locked door that's in front of her. And what do we see behind that locked door, Todd?
So some people, I think they're apparently dead.
Yeah, I would think so.
They're dead.
Yeah, they're pretty dead.
Laying right there in the middle of the floor, in the middle of a pentagram.
Yeah, and I would assume that is the family that's in that photo,
That's
the family
kinda
that
what
lived in that house. And that was the big, that was the one that eventually, turned my, excitement up, because I'm like, you see, the mom and dad kind of in the back, but the kid is the one that's kind of laid out and killed in the middle, in the center, and kind of sacrificed.
Right.
And they're like, well, this is one of those killing kid devil movies. So, all right, this is getting a little interesting.
Yeah.
Where do you kind of go from here and kind of set that up? But definitely a very, creepy shot, I would say. And, a very, It very kind of unsettling, I would say. Sam, obviously, she doesn't know about the dead family in the locked room. She did see the hair. She's seen the family photo, the car that they left in. Mr. Ullman, before he leaves, he gave her a number to call. Hey, in case you need us, this is the number where we're going to be tonight. Give us a call. She calls that number. Disconnected.
Right.
Things not adding up.
No.
So my question for that point for you guys is, you haven't seen the old lady, creepy kind of guy that you've been introduced to, bathtub full of human hair, photo of a family driving the same car outside the same house. It's not the family that you're babysitting for. Would that be enough to make you leave, Lexi?
Oh yeah, I would have been out that
Todd,
motherfucker.
where's your line here?
We're definitely pre-Uber days, but I would have started walking, definitely.
Also-
Thumbing a ride.
Yeah, also the number didn't work to add that in. Yeah, would
Yeah.
that be enough for you guys to have left the premises at that point?
I would have took the money here, already gave me and got the hell on.
Yeah, I got 200 of the 400 because he ends up paying her $400, or what he's supposed to pay her is 400. So I would think I would have just take the money
Cut
and
my
run.
losses.
Yeah,
and
you're on your own,
left.
granny, whoever's upstairs. Sam, however, so the movie continues. She doesn't leave. She calms down and she finally decides to order herself a pizza. She orders a pizza. A little bit later, they arrive. Sam, she's still kind of in a freaked out moment. Sam opens the door, throws the money at the pizza guy, tells him to keep the change, and then slams the door back. She goes, and as the audience, we know that the pizza delivery guy outside, we see that he's the stranger that shot her friend in the face.
Yep.
So you're like, okay, well, how's this dude going to play in? What the fuck's going on? Sam kind of settles in. She eats a few bites of pizza. She tosses the rest of the slice, and then she starts kind of washing her mouth out, Todd. So just bad pizza, or there's something more going on with this?
I think there's a little bit more going on with that sus pizza here.
Yeah, shit's about to ramp up. So, Todd, go ahead and take us through basically the ending, because once she kind of starts feeling those effects and starts heading upstairs, and we're definitely in our third act. We're in our last few minutes here of the film.
So she kind of looks like she's made her way up to like almost an attic type room, and the effects of the poisoned, we can go ahead and say now, poisoned pizza.
Yeah, poison or roofies, or
Yeah.
she got Cosby'd through some pizza,
Right.
you know,
Had some bad shrooms on it.
yeah,
maybe.
something, yeah.
Starts to take a hold of her, and she kind of notices, looks like somebody's walking around outside of the door where she's behind, and she just kind of succumbs to the pizza. She wakes up, she's right in the middle of an old pentagram, getting ready to be satanically sacrificed.
Yeah, like on a big stone sacrificial table or altar, I guess, that's in the basement, I would say, because no one ever really goes in the basement.
Right.
Mrs. Ullman, before, there's something else Sam noticed. She mentions that her furs were in the basement, but then she lied about that because there's furs
They were
upstairs.
in that closet, yeah.
So Sam is kind of tied, hands bound, feet bound across this sacrificial table while the rest of the family, which we assume dad, mom, son is our creepy cemetery shooter. And then we also have the granny. Do you want to explain the granny a little bit, Todd?
She looks very almost demonic in her appearance herself. I'm a
Yeah.
little bit gray on what the granny was. We may have to enlighten old Todd here.
Yeah, I don't mean like I don't know much about what
Right.
she was supposed to be, but she has this like, I don't know, Rocky Dennis-esque face going on,
Right.
like this almost semi-demonic looking face herself, and she seems to be the one kind of.
She's kind of getting into Sam's subconscious in a way, kind of.
Yeah, and she seems to be the one that's actually kind of doing the ceremony.
Right.
And like performing everything, because we see her on top of Sam. She's gotten blood from something else, but then she also kind of cuts her wrist open. And then she takes that blood and, like, I guess marks like a pentagram onto Sam's stomach. And Sam eventually, she gets free. I can't remember exactly how she gets free. Like, because she's got that like kind of like skull thing on her, like this like animal goat ram skull or something. How is it she gets free? Do you remember?
She kind of just kick herself free or something like that.
She ends up stabbing the grandma. She gets something to stab Mr. Ullman, because that was one of the things that I had a hard time believing, is like the way she got free, because she was able to so quickly like knock the granny off top of her, get her both hands free, both feet free, and stab Mr. Ullman before three grown adults were able to like get to her.
Right.
So that was one of the things I had a little bit of hard time believing, is like, how did you get that quickly out of those ropes, stab him, and then run away? Because she does end up stabbing him, and the mom and son kind of chase after her.
Yeah.
The
son
son
gets his
go ahead.
throat slit. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
She winds up slitting the son's throat,
Yeah,
and she winds
upstairs.
up stabbing the wife or the mother, his mother.
And this is where you connect the hair, because we see the mother, she's kind of having a little moment to herself. She's kind of looking out the window, and we see her take off her wig, and that's where your human hair comes from. I assume she took it, probably cut the mother of that actual families, the mom of the actual family they killed, cut her hair and made like a human wig from it.
Okay.
That made me nauseous.
That's what I assume, because she's looking like the crypt keeper as she's looking out the window
Right.
upstairs. Yeah, so son is dead. Sam takes a bullet in the shoulder. She ends up killing the mom too, and then she heads for the cemetery. What happens in the cemetery, Tom?
So Mr. Ullman, he kind of follows him behind her, tracks her down, and he's trying to tell her that, this is all about you. This is for you. You're the cog in this. The main. You're our sacrifice.
Right.
We have to have
It's
you.
a great honor.
Yeah, it's a great honor. Words to those effect. And I guess Samantha sees her only way out of this is to blow her own brains out.
Yeah. Or we think.
Oh, we think, because
think, yes.
we later see her sort of kind of reawakening consciousness a little bit in the hospital.
Yeah.
Just enough to be comforted by a nurse telling her that everything's going to be okay.
Yeah,
And we
both
roll
of
credits.
You, both of you. That's what she says at the end. She
Right.
touches her stomach, like
So
'cause
she's pregnant.
She's been impregnated, and she says,
Yes.
"For both of you, it's all going to be okay." Lexi, everything kind of ramps up really quickly and ends very quickly. Almost as much as it ramps up, it ends just as abruptly.
Yeah.
Did the ending work for you?
No.
Was the payoff? Did it work? Was it
No,
worth
I
it?
feel like they just like threw everything in your face and was like, here, here's what happened.
Here it is. You've waited an hour and 10 minutes for
For
something to
this.
happen, and we're
Right.
going to crank it up to 10.
Yeah.
Todd?
I'm kind of with Lexi here. I mean, you have so much of this movie that's just a slow burn that your ending almost almost feels like, guilty to say it gets too rushed a little bit. Too much happens at one time.
Yeah, I think it would have been better if he could have drip fed us some other moments to get us into that ending, maybe. But it really goes from 0 to 100, which, I mean, some people may prefer and they may like, but like I'm with you guys. It's too much too quickly, and it's resolved too soon.
Right.
And it just kind of leaves you like, huh? Like,
Right.
you don't get any explanation. I mean, and not everything has to be overly explained to death, but you have questions about the grandma. You have questions about what these people's goals are. Are they just trying to summon some kind of new demon in the world? Is this the Antichrist? Like, what's the motivation? This is the first time they ever done that? Is it the 100th time? And it's just like drip feeding a little bit more backstory, I think, would have helped this, and like drip feed some more scary moments, and maybe her getting chased around a little bit more.
And was the lunar eclipse something that had to happen for them to do that, or was it just a plot thread that went nowhere?
I think so, because it says on the news report at the end, like the eclipse went over.
That's right,
way quicker
quickly.
than it was supposed to.
Okay.
So there was something about that ceremony that maybe played with that. So
I got you.
those kind of questions, like it kind of, I think it's just too much. And like I said, it's some parts were a little goofy with it. Like I said, the fact that she so quickly gets out of those binds and nobody grabs her, keeps her on that table. The fact that she's like all the way on the ground and somehow can like cut all the way up and like slit that dude's throat was a little like suspension of disbelief. Before we go on the reviews though, because those are my kind of things. But what do you guys have? Any kind of lingering questions or anything that didn't make sense? Anything else that you guys want to talk about before we go into reviews? Lexi, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I didn't understand the end whenever the nurse was like, "You'll be okay," the both of you. Like, did she get pregnant by, like...
I think that was what the ceremony was. The granny was on top of her and painting that pentagram onto her stomach. And there's a part where she's either still in the house or at the graveyard, and she like lifts up her stomach, and you see those like veins and stuff, like kind of like growing on her stomach, like inside of it. So I think the ceremony was to impregnate her with something.
So she has a demonic baby now.
Yeah. So at the end, the nurse, and I've seen people ask online, is the nurse in on it? Does she know? No, I just think it's just a nurse, and she's just like, you're going to be okay. And then for the audience, both of you are going to be okay. As she like rubbing her stomach to say, demonic baby, you killing yourself, you shooting yourself in the head, you lived, and so is the demonic baby.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Anything else you had, Lexi, question-wise?
No, not question-wise.
What else did you have? Anything before reviews?
Yeah, I did want to mention, I was looking at some facts about this movie online.
Nice.
So Facts.net stated that this movie was made on a low budget and was shot in just 18 days.
I can see it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's your most of your your low budget kind of slow burn horror movies. You slow burn it, so you burn all your budget in the last 10 minutes. Like you just have a bitch walking around the house for an hour and a half or an hour and 15 minutes. In the last 15 minutes, you just blow all your budget and throw everything at the wall. But I mean, yeah, I could see that. 18 days, that's a tight schedule though.
Yeah.
But Todd, what about you? Lingering questions? Anything that didn't make sense? Anything you want to bring up?
Actually, talking it over, y'all answered most of the questions I had right now.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, like I saw online, it was like, what is the hair for? It's the wig. Was the nurse in on it? Like Lexi said, the demonic baby, talking about that. Was she pregnant? Like all that kind of stuff. Like, I think I have a pretty firm grasp on what was going down. But again, it was about the execution of it. And to Lexi's point, yeah, it's a low budget film, and it's just there's a lot thrown at you, and I wish it would have kind of been piecemealed out a little bit, and I'm not sure exactly if what you get there is enough for me to call this a good film. So speaking of, let's go into reviews, guys. You ready? Okay. Lexi, I'll start with you first since you're our guest here. Give us your review score and final thoughts for The House of the Devil 2009.
So my review score is 2, which is awful.
Damn. Hey. Lexi coming in hot.
Yeah. I give it that because it's not my kind of movie. It's good for people who like slow burning type movies, but that ain't for me. So
give me one positive. Give me one positive. An actor, a moment, one positive takeaway that you had. Anything.
Cigarette scene.
That scene was good.
Okay. All right. Yeah. We got one positive.
Okay.
So it's a 2 from Lexi. She says it's awful. Todd, what do ye say?
So I think that this movie kind of has that look and that feel of something that could have very much been made in that 80s horror boom. It could have been one of those like straight to video type releases that had a cool title and an even cooler VHS box.
Right. Yeah. Like a drawn poster artwork box or whatever.
It kind of sits in that vein because if we're being honest, it doesn't really stand out in that 80s horror crowd or any horror crowd, I would think. It doesn't really break a lot of new ground. It's just kind of a pretty decent movie, and I think that's kind of where I fell. I gave it a 6. I thought it was decent.
Gotcha. Yeah, something too that I should. What a drastic difference.
I love you.
Something I thought about too. It kind of plays into both films that we watched this week. This has kind of that intro, that text intro about basically satanic panic. And that's where this kind of fits in, you know, the whole satanic panic of the 80s and the 70s and all that kind of stuff. And this kind of firmly cements itself as like, this would be one of those movies if it was made back in the 80s. And it does fit in there. I think it's a low budget film, so I understand that. I just think the ending is a little bit too much.
Yeah.
And it's a little nonsensical in parts. And I wish there was a little bit more meat throughout the film. I don't mind a slow burn. It's not that I don't like that type of horror film. It's just I think you needed a little bit more information about what was going on, maybe some more creepy stuff like, why did she never find that room of bodies? That would have been a good scene with her seeing that room of bodies and a kid laid out across the floor.
Yeah.
Give her an inkling of what's going on. Like, you don't get those type of scenes. You don't get enough. I don't think there's enough meat here for me to say this is good or even decent. For me, I'm going at a 5. I'm going to say mediocre. Like, I feel like this is a pretty mid film. It's stylistically, I think it works. It's got a good vibe. It's got a good 80s vibe, good aesthetic. It captures that. It's just the filmmaking stands up pretty well. It's just the story and the execution for me that I think is a little bit lacking. So 5 for me.
Okay.
Lexi's a tough grader.
Shit.
She's like, not for me. Anything else, guys, before we move?
I'm good.
All right, that's it for this episode. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Feel free to send us an email or get in touch with us on social media. Lexi, thank you for coming back and being with us.
Of course.
Definitely.
Towel Capes will return. We want to thank you so much for watching. Until next time, bye, guys.
Later, guys.
Bye.